Some of the people I encounter possess so much creativity, curiosity, and intellectual horsepower that they take their talents across mediums. Marvin Nolasco is one such individual. He's a talented artist, musician, photographer, programmer, and much more. In this fun chat, we discuss how he got started, what is the secret to having a broad set of interests that he go deep into, whether robots will replace us in many creative endeavors, and much more. It's going to be fun. So let's get started. Marvin, it's great to meet you in person after having, I guess, discussed virtually for quite some time online. And so before we go further, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Marvin. I went to school for computer graphics, and somewhere in there, I decided to take a bunch of electives, and I came across Micromedia, Director, Flash, Premiere, and I decided to start moving in that direction because it was just way more fun. And I ended up playing with Flash from Director, and then while studying and looking at the internet for stuff, I found your page with all your amazing tutorials and like it gave me an opportunity to I'm not a programmer, I'm more of a visual person, but I understand programming, right? And it gave me the tools for me to grab elements here and there and just implement it into my projects and just make it work. And it got pretty exciting by the end. Like I was running an intranet page that I was building for a company I was working for, and they were basically it was just going to be connected with XML and just pulling data from different places and all that. And it was really cool. And then Apple, you know, destroyed Flash. Well, Flash was also becoming a problem because people were just clicking on click here to update Flash Player.
Yeah, it's one of those fun times because the story you mentioned about you're studying graphic design, you're studying something visual, you discover Flash, and then you end up creating something which historically would have been something you needed to have a lot of programming knowledge in. It's just an
Right.
amazing one. And I think that's something that Flash, I think, really brought to the forefront. And its demise, in many ways, is one that we never recovered from. Like today, a lot of people who are studying graphic design, they don't really have a path to say, I'm going to take my skills and still be able to build something productive. I think we have some low code tooling like Framer, things like Webflow that are kind of close the gap a bit, but it's never quite the same though in terms of like how much capabilities you're able to build versus what you had with Flash almost 20 years ago.
I mean, it's because even after Flash was just being removed, Netflix was running Flash for a while because they were like secure in its own weird way. You know what I mean? It was very powerful. It was awesome, fun stuff, and I was actually excited for the director because the director started going online, and you were able to bring 3D elements in director. So I saw some very cool stuff when after school, but it just kind of never caught on, and also the bandwidth was insane. So
And of
and
course, Flash was a threat. If you're an app store, you're building an ecosystem for a
right,
platform. Flash was a walled garden in its own way, and you don't want to lose track of that. Apple definitely didn't want to. They wanted more people to build native apps for their app stores, and same with all the other phone platforms as well. And even the ones that were open to having Flash run on it, Flash just couldn't. It didn't have the performance characteristics. It couldn't meet the battery requirements and so on. So even on fully open platforms, we can be like, yeah, please use Flash and make it work. Outside of the desktop, laptop, more powerful settings, in mobile, it just struggled. And I think that was, Apple didn't help, but in
right.
general, Flash's inability to work in the mobile space pretty much made it the, end of the line for it, unfortunately.
I mean, I did see Apple saying, you know what, I don't want people playing homemade games on our devices. Like, no, this is not happening. And they just say, oh, it's a security thing. I was like, all right, sure, whatever. But man, it really hurt. It was,
It does. It does hurt. And mainly because not that the tool itself is gone. It's just that the world it enabled for so many creative people to be able to take their idea and bring it to life. That world was lost, and that's the part that
right.
always gets to me sometimes as well. Because I look
Well,
at the difficulties people have learning about web development or native development. I'm like, this is way too complicated. A visual problem should be solved visually, not by you writing tens and thousands of lines of code to just make a rectangle move on screen from one side to
right.
another, which is a very common thing that people do.
I mean, that's also why I like Flash because it was a visual. You grab that rectangle and you drag it across the timeline and it'll just fill in the blanks for you and you could just do all sorts of weird fun stuff. Which is why I'm completely like mind blown that by 3JS. And it's like, why is nobody using this? Like, it's amazing. It looks amazing. I got excited just from seeing my phone saying downloading. Please wait. And I was like, what? There's something loading. It's not gonna be like this long CVS receipt, which is what web design has become. Because I think 90 something percent of the people, first of all, people don't have a computer anymore, and they do everything on their phone, which is I find fascinating because like I have all these tools and I have my machines and my computer, but people are just editing phone videos on their phone. They're creating animations. They're making music, and they're okay by uploading a file that gets transferred to WhatsApp that's super compressed. And I was like, what? What? No, like the video is in 4K, and you want me to send it to WhatsApp? So there's this very strange gap because they don't have computers. They're not able to, they don't understand the concept of like, yes, this video shoot was about 40 gigs of data and it's going to take you a while, especially if the power goes out in the country you're in. And it's fascinating
Yeah,
and also
it's almost
frustrating. It's, do you know what I mean?
it's like
Like the other
yeah,
day,
no, I
so
hear you. It's like when technology became democratized, right? It was a kind of case like we have this idea of that people will be willing to pay for higher quality of content or being able to wait longer
right,
times for things to be perfect. As it turned out, people opt for convenience 90% of the time. The 10% of the times where they do need better quality and like the premier experience isn't worthwhile for companies to invest in anymore. So we've kind of just lowered the barrier in general. And a great example of this is that I was always a big fan in like audio and video and like
hmm,
sound systems and like video quality and all these things for a very very long time. And so I used to be one of those people who actually physically pay for Netflix and make Blu-ray discs essentially because that's like
right,
not compressed with physical media and all these
right,
things. And then once streaming just caught on and took on a life of its own, it's almost impossible to get Blu-rays or like physical media in high quality anymore. And with streaming, you can tell the quality is not great. Even if you
yep,
have 4K UHD, you're on like a gigabit fiber connection, you can tell, especially if you're trained to like okay, you can see the banding in the sky. You can see the blacks are not it's not the 8-bit black. It's like the 4 bits. You can
right.
see like the grayscale things like. But people don't care, and we kind of lost it because it's all about convenience now. And you see people complaining about for various reasons. Like I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but a few times there's some complaints that some of the scenes were too dark. The director made it very, very dark and it was hard
Right.
to see it. And I'm like, I can see from an artistic point of view why that style was taken. And if you have a properly tuned setup, it makes sense why that actually is the best way to view that content. But the majority of the world has moved on to it. And I think all of us as content creators kind of have to realize that how do we make sure that for those who care about something really high quality, it's provided. But for the large masses who do not care, what is accessible and still usable of the same version of the content?
I mean, you bring an interesting point because I started watching Game of Thrones at the end, right? I didn't
Yeah.
bother for years. I was busy being a DJ, throwing events, and like just being a rock star in my own little world. And TV was not a thing. And eventually, the last season's coming, and I was like, okay, fine. They spent a lot of money, so sometimes I watch television because it's expensive, and it's like, you know what? If they put so much money into this, something good has to come out. Even if the story is not good, then the lighting, the animation, something had to happen in there. So I watched that premiere episode, and it's like it's all crazy and everything goes haywire. And I started to see the banding on the TV, and I was like, oh, right, this is like listening to a 5.1 mix surround sound on your Apple headphones from 5 years ago, like the trashy little earbuds. You're just not getting the full experience. Also, as a person that works in production and shoots like videos from like small stuff to bigger stuff, I noticed that most people consume on their phone. Like they don't even watch it on the TV on YouTube. They just watch it on their phone and stream it from their phone, and it's very sad because it's like, well, so everything I do, it's been downgraded to a phone, and people just want to watch little effects on the phone. Look what I did, that's really cool. And I'm like, I have After Effects, like I get involved into these things. But it is fascinating. I'm beginning to learn to adapt, I guess you can say, to the new world of content consumption, if you will. And like, for the most part, it's like I don't think people need a 4K video for at least another 4 or 5 years. And unless if you're really, really into that world, like I picked up actually an Ultra HD Blu-ray player the other day in the street for like $20. I was like, yes, this is perfect. And I know it has upscaling and all that. So I brought it home, I popped some CDs, and they actually looked amazing considering that it's a CD, right? So then the Blu-rays, I learned also not too long ago that not all Blu-rays were 4K. I was like, wait, this is 1080. It's like, what? Okay, so where's the good stuff? I want to like, splurge my eyeballs into this experience of like, wow. And even then, it's like, well, my TV is like mid-range. I don't have the full, wow, amazing experience that I can probably get if, the proper setup. So at this point, it's just like, all right, I'll consume and tone it down. But it's really exciting, the technology though, and the resolutions are just out of control. The file sizes are insane. Like they're people don't understand how much of storage for like a 4K raw footage. It's like, yeah, that's massive. Like you need to bring me a terabyte drive for the shoot, and you might not be able to
Yeah,
play the file yourself at home. it,
it's
it's
totally true.
it's
And,
crazy,
and so
and
you made the transition. You were in graphic design, and then you kind of transitioned into video and definitely music, which is a big part of your life right now. And so, what made that transition happen?
so the music thing started, I guess, with the computer thing and like the video game thing early, like in the early 90s. Okay. I started taking DOS classes, DBase classes. And then a friend of mine introduced me to electronic music, right? And electronic music back then, I guess, was the only music that was like very dirty and grungy and like nasty, have curse words and stuff. And being a preteen, I was like, ooh, they're cursing. Oh my God, what is that? And it was just very, very exciting stuff. And he was able to introduce me to a full spectrum of electronic music. And also, I started doing like we would do banners in the school with our names with a dot matrix printer, and it'll be like the design would be balloons, so the letter inside, like very simple stuff. I used to draw as a kid, so that kind of just started to merge, I guess. I worked in a PBS when I was in high school as an intern, and I worked with the art director. So he introduced me to the world of graphics and advertising and how much is a full page spread at the New York Times at that time, which was like $150,000. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like it was just a whole different. And I remember one time we had a meeting and he was showing me some layouts, and it was for a flamenco dancer that was going to be in town. And they were here, okay, so these are the ads. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I was like, well, you should maybe remove this. I don't think this is. Mind you, I was a kid, but I was like under the art director of the station, and it was amazing. And that kind of solidified, like, oh, and I also took some Illustrator and Photoshop class in high school. So that kind of just pushed me more in that direction. I found like, okay, I kind of get it, even though Illustrator was just not, didn't make sense for years. And then one day I went to my school, and one of those scammy art schools had a poster. It's like, hey, come to art school, you don't need a portfolio. And I was like, well, I didn't realize I needed a portfolio to get to a good school. So that was kind of my thing. So I went to like the Art Institute, but I met a lot of interesting people, and I've learned a lot. Like I just started picking people's brains and just started watching what the people were next to me in the computer lab doing. So I was like, oh, you're doing 3D. How do you do planets? How do you make things rotate? I want to make a spaceship. So I got into a little bit of everything while I was there, and it was awesome. It was an awesome experience. Like I think I've been yearning for that kind of circle of creative people to just like to just bounce ideas on a constant day-to-day basis. Because you just go to somebody's room and say, "What are you working on? Here's my drawing for the final for blah blah blah," and yeah, that's from there. I just started painting just as an expression. That's actually some stuff I'm working on back there. And I just do stuff and music. A friend of mine in college, he introduced me to the idea that he made music with a keyboard, a four-track recorder, and a microphone. And I was like, I don't believe you. Like, you have to show me, please. And he just blew my mind. I was like, what? You could do music? And I was like, can you read music? He goes, no. I was like, I want in. I want in. And it just started this very strange chase of just having more outlets creatively, if you will, where I guess as being a kid, drawing was my thing. So now being a grown up kid, it's like, okay, well, I could play some music, I can make some music, I can experiment with stuff. I spent last year doing video editing finally because I finally had a computer that was decent enough to do the work. And and I just dove in. And I also ran into I saw that Flash was still alive as Adobe Animate. So I got very excited about that. Like, oh my god, I maybe need to open up my old files and re-render them because like my files are stuck in a drive. I can't show anybody my website and like but it was very cool. And I was just a kid just moving boxes around and merging things and masking things and it definitely gave me a different perspective of like how to approach design. And I got good work from my design stuff. It's just that the .com collapse happened, and I was part of that early. Like I just got hired. I was making decent money for being a kid, and then it was just like, okay, well, we have to let you go. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I started doing WordPress, and then I literally just started moving away from design because the squeeze wasn't worth the juice. It's like, you know what, this is not, and it wasn't as exciting anymore. It was just like, okay, I build WordPress and I have to clean it up. It's like, do I really want to get into PHP? And here I am again, like staring at code. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like, this is not. So, but now because of 3JS, I'm actually very excited to add, like, I was thinking about translating my old work into the forefront and making it in a 3D environment as soon as I find like I guess like a visual place where I can just build my stuff. So it's yeah, that's what's happening. And then VR is also exciting. Like I'm very excited for VR and actually augmented reality. Like I had ideas from like being a kid, dude, and finally the technology is like catching up. Like I had an idea when I was a kid of somebody that was doing exercises over the internet, and he would monitor this room with like 20 people, and he'd just go in between cameras and all that. And I pitched it to the guy, and it wasn't even that expensive, but it was just like it people didn't fully see, and it's just all happening now. Like you sit on your bike with a tablet, and you have somebody screaming at you, "You could do it, John!" And it's so yeah, I'm kind of slowly getting back into the possibilities. Augmented reality is gonna be fun. Like it's gonna be fun, I think. For
Absolutely. And you mentioning 3JS is actually pretty interesting because that might be the technology that powers so much of the AR and VR experiences as
ah,
well. So, in using 3JS, do you like the API design? Do you like the way you can take your ideas and turn it into visuals at the end of it?
I mean, I'm still very fresh to it right now. Um, I'm not fully aware of how far you can go. I just realized that there is a camera in there. There's objects. There's perspective, and I was like, okay, that's kind of fun. And the fact that you can bring elements from Blender, which I was like, okay, that could be interesting too. Um, so just I'm also beginning to think in that realm, right? Because it kind of merges my thought process of how I saw Director becoming 3D in the web. Do you know what I mean? So now I can build a website where instead of scrolling up and down, I'm scrolling into a hallway, into like a gallery kind of thing, you know? And then you just start putting in whatever elements you want in there. And it is exciting, and it doesn't seem that like the load is not that heavy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is that I don't know if you're familiar with the history of 3JS, but it's actually created by Mr. Doob. He was a very famous Flash developer who created really nice visualizations back in the day when you and I were probably using Flash quite
Hmm.
extensively. And the first version of 3JS was actually written in ActionScript. It was actually made to have
Huh.
Flash have really good 3D capabilities. And it wasn't until, probably like maybe 10 years ago that, Mr. Doob rewrote it to work in JavaScript. And then when WebGL became a thing, so you can actually do like really nice shaders and colors and, do things beyond just what you can do on the canvas or the
Right.
DOM, that it really took on a life of its own. And so that's why, I was curious to know like how you like the API design and so on, because it was so heavily inspired by the world that we all kind of came from, which is the Flash world. And so this idea of like constructs that can have like various visual properties on them is very much like the movie clip that we had in the Flash world to
Right.
represent a lot of it. And and that's why I was like pretty excited to hear that even though you left that world behind, you rediscovered the evolution of that world in some ways. There's no visual tool, but the bulk of the creative expression in the API form already exists in what 3JS provides.
I mean, like I said, because of the VR thing, I think it's changing stuff. It's finally becoming a thing. Um, and I don't know. I mean, that whole idea of the Minority Report with the stuff, the hologram floating around and the interaction, like for me, it's like, okay, I could see definitely how that's going to end up working. You have your glasses, you're walking around. Like I have this very cool concept of deploying content where you walk through the neighborhood, there's a barcode and you scan it, right? And then as you scan it, then photos will pop out that were taken based on like a location. And so you get to see like, oh, well, this photo was taken here. And you kind of have like a strange tour. I don't want to give you more details because it's something that I'm trying to mentally put together as stuff starts coming out. And I think it's a very cool concept and it's worth like keeping hush hush for now. But it's just like we can drop content anywhere now. I mean, a QR code, people, I mean, which is kind of funny and reckless that people just scan them. But the idea that people finally have an app in their phone that can scan a QR code, like before we had to download an app, you know what I mean? Like there had to be this middle step, which is what always turned people off to like doing any of these things. So now it's just almost like here's the tools. Here's like the AR is going to start being inside the OS also. So it's cool stuff, man. Very cool stuff.
Do you think VR will ever take off? Like we've been hearing the promise of VR. There were like games from like the 80s that had like poorly drawn VR kind of capabilities. Because I always look at it in terms of like you have virtual reality and you have augmented reality. One of those two is going to win. And I always, if I was a betting person, I always keep betting on AR being the solution. But I'm
Right.
curious to get your take on it, where you feel it's going to go.
Um, I like business wise, AR makes a lot of sense, right? But when this whole NFT thing popped out and the Web3, which I was like, what the hell does that even mean? When that whole thing popped out, that people started joining communities online and started going to gatherings with little cartoons, little icons. I was like, okay, I've seen this before, and that's kind of cool that people are doing that, right? And that gave, I think, the technology an extra push because then after that, I started watching some videos of people just going into like the chat rooms and just being at the disco, and you just have a character just doing a move that you type in. We're gonna wiggle, it just wiggles. Um, the VR thing, I think it's awesome, but it's kind of creepy because like you know, like imagine playing one of those immersive games like Resident Evil or something, or you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
it's gonna mess with you. Like it's definitely going to like it could impact your psyche and your mental state because it feels so real, right? And the higher resolution they get and the more tricks that we do and the blurring and making it more intense and the sound, like for the people that are into that, wow, they're gonna have a blast. Like, and I could see games having a warning in the future like, hey, don't play this if you have heart problems, or make sure you turn like, do you know what I mean? Because I think it's very powerful. The other thing is that you can do virtual tours. Like people, I do see people living in a very strange. I mean, we already live in a very strange dystopian future where this is the norm.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's gonna go from here to here. and
Yep.
I'm just gonna sit at
As long as
home.
we have a good awareness of our spatial surroundings, I think, VR could be the thing that we all have like in our embedded. Actually, let's go one step further. Speaking of dystopian future, like Neuralink, having actual embedded brain
Ooh.
implants that kind of translate. Well, why even need the glass? You just have direct connection between your, auditory and optical pathways to something digital that can actually alter it in real time.
I mean, that's fascinating stuff, man. I mean, we're machines at the end of the day. Like we're electrical
Yeah.
machines, and we do actually emit. We have a force, like a magnetic field around us, which is fascinating. Like I love the science that we are, and the idea of having, I guess, a patch cable for somebody that can't feel their legs, running from the bottom of their spine to the top of their spine, and then they could feel their legs. It's like it's very possible because it's kind of the same thing, and this is what he's kind of building in a way, right? So I again, it's as exciting as it is, it can just go haywire because computers go haywire, and it's just you know like on some cyberpunk stuff, like in the game, people just have short circuit kind
Exactly.
of thing, right? And I guess we're going to go into the world of, are you fully human or do you have implants? Which is kind of cool. I mean, the idea of having knee implants when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I busted my knees playing basketball. So when I get old, I could probably get some new knees. Now it's just like I can get my eye implant or something and I can actually see better, right? I can have like bionic eyes, like they have contact lenses that have augmented reality. So we're going to start building these little things that we can. I mean, hearing aids are now like smart hearing aids, basically. Like they're like headphones, and they have noise canceling, and you can like cancel out certain frequencies from them, which is amazing. Like I always thought that's going to be great. Cancel the
And a lot
world,
of modern pacemakers, a lot of the modern pacemakers that people use, they have like some Wi-Fi connectivity, so you can like remotely diagnose and things that are going on there. And pacemakers have been around for a long time, and it's a pretty critical thing that is
right?
now intelligent and smart with like CPU architecture and things like that. So I think we're maybe indirectly, slowly, but realizing it, automatically just becoming more and more of a hybrid between a human and a robot.
I mean, like the pacemaker idea was freaked me out because imagine if you just have a device that's running your system, your hard drive. Somebody could just send either a magnetic field, like it sounds crazy, right? But if you could just give it enough energy or a shock or something, or just hack it, why the fuck not? Excuse me. But you know what I mean? Like I'm sure the technology is not the safest thing. And if somebody's like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do what I need to do because this person, like, it's an option, and that's kind of freaky. And if we talk about like putting an implant, like you can actually change probably the perception, the visual perception of a person with an implant, and you can just like, whoa. I mean, I've never thought about it till now. You can
Yeah,
just
there's going to be
change
this,
their everything.
kind of like, kind of like we talked about earlier, where there's going to be like this point where like there's going to be an inflection point where like all these lines kind of converge. I think one line is going to be, how do we make robots be more like human beings? We keep seeing these like videos from, I think it's Boston Dynamics, where the
Right.
robot's like dancing, it's climbing upstairs, doing backflips, and I'm like, I cannot do a backflip. So it's already like
Right.
doing things
Right.
that I could not possibly
It
do.
runs
And on
faster
top
than
of that,
me. It does backflips. Like what?
yeah, it can also like carry like several thousand pounds without
Right.
even flinching. So like it already has like capabilities that I wish I could have, and I know physically it's impossible for me to have that kind of capability.
Can you picture
And then we're
yourself
also
being
seeing
able to
like,
do that stuff though?
yeah, exactly,
It's
yeah.
like I
I mean,
got
who wouldn't want
upgrades.
that?
I got my
Yeah, I want
paycheck. I got
upgrades
upgrades,
exactly.
baby.
Yeah, like the old Mech Warrior or like Mega Man X, like the whole all the video games from back then, where you could take a robot and like upgrade and make it more powerful and so on. So I think we're gonna see more human-like robots coming into like our everyday life, and then we're gonna see humans getting more robotic-like capabilities, whether it is better hearing or better seeing or being able to, like you mentioned, like if you have a physical ailment, now
Right.
the combination of electronics and robotics can get you back to a state that you were in, maybe even better. And so there's going to be a convergence point where we're going to figure out what is it to be a human and what is it to be a robot. And all these sci-fi films that have been trying to answer this for decades, if not even a century, from like all the H.G. Wells books from back then, will finally come to a point where like now we can actually answer it, not theoretically, but with actual real life examples.
Right. I mean, it's funny you bring H.G. Wells because I saw his speech that he had when he was talking about the possibility that we live in a computer simulation, and it
Yeah.
just blew my mind. He's also like, "Hey, people, like this is serious. I thought about this. It sounds crazy, but hear me out." And that's something that I actually been thinking about. Like I love ideas. I love to, as a creative person, I love to like every now and then I indulge, like even if it's a conspiracy, because ooh, well, this would be a very interesting story. What if you built something that works with this concept and all that? And the whole concept that we live in a computer simulation. Every now and then I look people around me. I was like, "You're just programmed to be the shoe repair guy, and I should not be talking to you about deeper stuff than shoe repair. Maybe we
Have you seen
do live."
Westworld?
I no, not yet. I have that on
Okay,
few
that
things.
show touches upon that topic in great, great detail.
Hmm.
Where you often don't know until at a certain point, you're like, wait, that person's not a human; they're actually a robot, and all the complications. I think it's also based on a famous book. I forget; it's one of the famous authors. It might be Sagan or Asimov. I forget which one, but that basically is the premise of this. So I think there's a world where people imagined this could happen, and I
Right.
think now we're close to being able to realize the all those visions as in our everyday life.
It's it's funny because like we're talking about technology, right? But and 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 there's such a disconnect with the reality of the world. Like I live in New York City and I live in Manhattan, and the way the city is right now, it's so inside out. There's a lot of people with drug problems. There's a lot of people with mental issues. I've never seen that before, ever, ever, ever. And we're the other day I was reading that like, oh yeah, this guy is trying to give people internet because everybody needs to be connected, and I was like, well, they need water and food, and there's that distance. So kind of talking about the dystopian Westworld kind of thing, like it's very strange times, man. Like it's very very strange times, and like and the technology is available to everybody. Like we can actually kind of fix the world if we dedicate it to it. Like we can just upcycle a bunch of stuff and start teaching people like, hey, this is how you can make a little lamp with some foil, chlorine, water, and some light, and like basic stuff. And
Yeah, I don't
it's
know if you ever followed the video creator, but Mr. Beast, he's I think like the most popular YouTuber right now, and he creates like interesting videos and things like that. And he recently made news for basically finding 1,000 people who are blind and just curing them by taking them to a doctor. Not even a
right,
technologically advanced problem, but just a common thing. Is like, wait, then you sort of take a step back and you're like, wait, why does it take a YouTuber who's probably like in his early 20s who just wants to do fun things? Why does it take someone like that to go and solve a societal problem that easily could have been solved by any number of things that the world is currently focusing on? I mean, I know it's not the case where like everyone has to like stop pretending to like go to Mars or like solving these
right.
problems and everyone's solving these things. We need a mixture of all these items, but it does kind of bring to the forefront again like some of the weirdness of the world that we're living in, where the biggest problems that we think are very different than the more fundamental ones of like just not being able to see and having easy
Right.
solutions that are within reach for solving that.
It's really awesome to see that people like that are doing stuff like that. Like I always like every time I leave my house, if I go out at night, if I'm going to a club or something, I have extra water, banana or something, and I just give it to people on the train because it's like why not? And this is the way that I can help, and it's something like I have. But I also saw that some people online will give people stuff and record it and stuff like that, which I think it's funny. I was like, well, you don't really have to do that, but there's something positive to it because the other kids will go and help in some weird way. Like it's helping ish. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in philosophy, right? They always talk about like there really is no such thing as a selfless act. There's always a certain selfish nature to everything that we do.
Hmm.
Even the things that we do that are good, like altruistic. There's a motivation behind it. It makes you feel good and things like that. And the videotaping one always comes into like that ethical gray area. It's like, are you videotaping it to make others know that you're a good person, you're trying to do good
Right.
things? Or are you trying to encourage other people to do things like this? And those are the things where it's all about perception and point of view. There is no right or wrong answer here.
I mean, right, and I guess that's when the spiritual comes in, where you start questioning. You're like, wait, I have to start questioning myself. Maybe this is genuine. Why am I thinking that this is not genuine? So it's funny,
Yeah,
but it's nice to
exactly.
see that people are actually like stepping up and doing stuff like that. Because living in a city with so many homeless people, one thing I learned is that like they feel like they're invisible. Like nobody talks to them. Nobody and it's imagine like every now and then. I mean, put yourself in somebody's shoes. Like I always said like if you're lucky in our experiences in life, you're able to play every single role of every character, right? Imagine like if it's a game, well, you're gonna be rich one day, and then you're also gonna be poor one day. You're gonna be extremely happy. You're gonna be extremely sad. But you're going to be able to feel. And on some spiritual stuff, like the idea that we reincarnate, we're here is because we can feel here, and we can like we can hurt. We can like, oh my god, I couldn't feel this as an energy ball nebula floating around in the universe or whatever it is. So so I find it fascinating, and when I see stuff like that, it touches me, and I say, wow, like we're not too far from like being there, and it's like I get it, but also like sorry, I'm kind of rambling about it, but it's also part of the things that inspire me because when I see stuff like that, I try to to, like stop or try to guide the young kids that want to do something to like, hey man, there's different options, like you have a computer, you have a phone, you could make stuff, you can create stuff, like you can just go for it, because what's happening now is that I see a lot of the kids back then that I used to be in music studios, they're in the street asking for dollars, and it's like, ouch, what happened here? So it's and that's why like I love the whole creative thing and ideas and just indulging in like all sorts of different things because it's part of the human nature and it's fascinating. It's so rewarding too. I think you know. Sorry, I know I went off track a bit.
No, that's what I love these conversations. There's more to all of us than just the work that we do, what the things we put out. We think
Right,
about all of these things, and for me, it's all this is exciting because I spend a lot of time thinking about this exact same issue as well. It's like, what is the purpose of all the stuff we're doing? At the end of the day, does anything that we're doing really matter? Is it moving the needle in either making life better for humanity in general, or like prolonging life on Earth? All these
right,
things are all the existential questions that we often have. I do think back at it sometimes and I go, what is the end goal of some of these things? Like, is it really having the intended effect that we think it's really going to be having? I mean, that's what got me started writing and teaching many years ago as well. Is like, I have a skill here where I can take complicated things and simplify them.
right,
Can I do something meaningful with that? And luckily, it happened to be in an industry that was growing.
right,
People thought about technology, internet grew, the world of visual design grew, and so on. So
right,
it kind of indirectly benefited me in my personal career and life and all of that. But I always imagine, like, what if my hobby wasn't something complete? What if it wasn't like something that isn't as mainstream? Like, what if it was all about, like, let's say, carpentry? I
right.
have a knack for like taking complicated things and helping you create that out of various types of wood. I would still like to do that. I would love to do that. I can't imagine the quality of life and the experiences that I had being able to talk to someone like you, for example, would have been possible had I gone down that route. I might be still doing things I might be happy with,
I mean,
but it might be very different.
I can see carpentry kind of getting a little exciting.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
there's
It's
so
definitely
many
getting
different
exciting.
materials of carpet and like blah blah and which one cleans better and colors and
Agreed, but the trick, right, oftentimes, and I often see this when I'm like mentoring people about careers and things like that, is what are you really passionate about? That is one thing, but really, what is society also valuing as well?
right,
Like, you can be
right,
passionate about other things, but if society doesn't care, like, I could enjoy painting or like writing things only with the color blue. That's my
right.
favorite color. I'm like, I could do that, but most people like multiple colors. They like seeing things with variety of things and so on. And so I have to kind of balance what I care about with what others care about as well. If my goal is to cater, in a service industry or creative industry to other
Right.
people's needs. And I always find that the luckiest ones are ones who somehow were able to fully align what they like and what society values in a way that works out really nicely for them. And then the ones that are frustrated often are ones who have a passion for one thing, but what they can actually do are very different. And you see it a lot in the creative industry as well, where their day job is something very non-creative. It's
Right.
like, whatever a traditional industry work might be, but then they come home and get to do their, the creative side of things. And you always see the excitement between like talking about their day job. It's like, yeah, just, pays the bills and all these things. And it's like, oh,
Right.
I love creating things because I do all this fun stuff. And so I always want to know, like, what can we do to society in general where anybody has a passion for these kind of things? How can we help them be, have a quality of life that, keeps them healthy and happy and so on, and they still get to move the needle in like the things they're really passionate about?
I mean, it's funny you bring that up because I have a lot of creative friends, and I don't know, like I have a very strange path, and I have a very strange determination. I guess I have the vision of who I am and what I can do, what I'm into, and like I'm really interested and I'm very curious, right? But I have other friends that, it's like, well, I have to pay bills. Like, I understand you have to pay bills, but you can doodle on the train. It's like you need to make space in your head. I'm also very privileged. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I freelance, right? My family does look out for me, for a good time, for a good chunk of the year. I'm just getting back into reality. I had to take care of family stuff for a minute, so I'm getting back into being creative and getting into the field, which is why I started to do video editing because I was shooting and I was doing director of photography work and setting up cameras and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe I just want to edit because the editor is butchering my work, and it's there's no purpose of like getting this beautiful lens and it's manual and you get like there's beautiful colors and all this, and then the editor just starts adding squiggly effects here and there, and it's like, why? So I felt compelled to also, and like you said, it's something that's kind of a thing. So yes, I can actually get work as an editor, So I got into Premiere, and I was like, okay, cool, Premiere down, boom. I jumped into DaVinci recently. I started using DaVinci Resolve, and I was like, all right, cool, I feel comfortable in there. I messed around a little bit with After Effects, and next is going to be, I guess, Animate and the whole 3D thing. Um, but also because these are things that are going to get me further and deeper into I guess, the core of the creative good stuff. You know what I mean? Because, yes, I paint. Am I going to dedicate a bunch of time into painting abstract stuff? That I'm can maybe because I have to also learn that world. It's like, well, I have to go take my paintings to galleries and hey, look, I paint, blah blah blah. And it's like I'm not interested in that. Like that's a whole different world. Um, so it's you're totally right. And I've been just lucky enough that I've been curious and I've been having fun playing with computers and cameras and software and experimenting with stuff as it began to develop. Like I was doing web design in 1998 with front page,
Yeah,
and it's
that's how
like,
I got started as well. So like
and
same.
and and I loved it. I was like, okay, I get it, but it was just boring. It's like I don't want to be cutting out boxes around circle buttons and transparencies. Like there's no shadows. If I put shadows, it looks like crap. And I was like, no, no, I don't. Which is why Flash and Director was like, this is amazing. I could do shadows and animated and stuff. Like yes. So so yeah, I am moving still in the same kind of direction. Like and eventually right now I'm just trying to merge everything. Like I want to be able to take my paintings and shove it into some AI stuff and mix that with something else, which is a whole different world of like, like exploration, you know what I mean? Like I could take my entire photo collection and just run it through AI and just dress it up as whatever and project it and paint it and do something else and animate it and so it's like endless fun. And I can also get paid because it's a thing now. Like people want to see cool artwork again. People are interested in like, oh, that's cool. All right. How can we get people to come to the party? We do graffiti now, and we do okay, cool, yeah, we're interested in that. So,
Yeah,
but
and everything you've described right now about how you went from this like drawing and sketching to all the stuff you're doing right now, the word you mentioned earlier about curiosity, I think that in many ways is a defining trait about you, where you're willing to try different things out just because you're curious, see how far it goes, and you also have the intellectual horsepower to go deep into it and make sense of all these complicated things. So
for the
speaking of
most part, yeah,
yeah, so speaking of AI, actually, I've spoken to various people who have different opinions on the role that AI plays. Many are terrified. They're like, okay, I spent my entire life learning how to light things, create these rigs in three-dimensional, space and create all these things. And then you have someone, let's like me, for example, has zero experience in that. I go into like something like Midjourney or
right,
Stable, Diffusion, something. I type in a text prompt for exactly what I want. I hit generate. A couple of minutes later, I get something that came out that, for the most part, is pretty high quality that required zero skills whatsoever. And on the other
right.
hand, you're actually excited about it. You're looking at this and saying that, this is going to help you be more successful. And so I'm curious to get your take on it. Like, is there the fear of AI coming and making a lot of these creative tasks obsolete overblown? Or is there something where you're kind of like moving up the value chain where the calculator didn't get rid of people who can now need to do math and just help them
Right.
spend more time doing things that they're more uniquely qualified to do?
Um, first, there's a lot of people that are gonna be out of the loop. I'll tell you right now, it's powerful. I've been researching from visual to video to even Chat GPT writing a VST plugin. Okay. And I was like, what? That's insane. That's amazing. That's great. That's powerful. That's like talk about giving people more power. You know what I mean? Like first thing was the computer, right? Because of a computer, I'm able to have a full recording session in my house. Before that, you had to go to a place and you had to get a reel-to-reel machine and you had to do this and you had to like four people doing this whole thing. Now we can do it at home. Same thing with video. I can shoot with my phone. I can edit on the computer. I can edit on the phone, right? So the AI thing, it's definitely there's a conundrum in there because I don't think it's going to take away from the artist, from like people's being creative. I mean, if you're a musician and you play instruments, I want to see you play instrument. I don't want to see somebody on the computer, which I kind of do that. Like I'm building this whole live computer slash machine setup where it's like I'm playing with the computer, but I'm also tweaking knobs and pressing buttons. And it's funny because the whole thing with the music and being a DJ, like the DJ thing went through the phases of, well, we're playing vinyl, right? And then it's like, oh, you're playing CDs. Well, it's not the same, and it's just that. And vinyl's warmer, and this and that. And then here comes the computer. It's like, well, I could do everything you guys were doing. Yes, it doesn't sound as amazing, but give me some time, and I can let you do other stuff that none of this is gonna let you do. And people were complaining about it for a while, and then it just became like it's a tool, and it's fun. Like I cannot tell you, I love playing records, I love playing CDs, I love playing with the machines, but I also love playing with my computer, and it's just so different. So with AI, I think what's going to happen is that it's also another tool that's going to help you expand, I think, your visions, and I think it's going to also give people that don't have a single creative bone the ability of doing something nice. Let's say for their kids, like I'm gonna take a picture of. So the other day I visited my nephew's kid, right, and he was at the hospital. He was getting some procedure done, and I had to tell him like, look, man, Spider-Man used to eat his veggies. He's like, what? I was like, yes, Spider-Man ate veggies. You need to eat your veggies. I went online and looked Spider-Man eating veggies. And I found a picture of Spider-Man with fruits and veggies. And he was like, whoa, that's amazing. So right then and there, I'm thinking, all right, wait till I get home. I'm going to start feeding your pretty face into AI and just try to get some Spider-Man thing going on and blow his mind, you know? And that's something that we couldn't do when we were kids, right? Like the best thing you could do is like either take a picture or can you draw me? And not everybody could draw. So there's that aspect of it, right? But also kind of like fast fashion, right? Like disposable stuff. AI is going to start making disposable stuff, like ambient music. We don't need no more ambient music. We're just gonna have AI spitting out tones and rhythms that are going to be calming and soothing to the people that are in there, based on the season and the marketing studies and what country you're in. Like, do you know what I mean? So
Have you
people are going.
seen the latest announcement from Google a couple of days ago, where they actually generate really high quality music based on just prompts that you do? They don't do lyrics well yet, but you can just describe it, and just like how Stable Diffusion and Midjourney give you visuals, they actually now create really high quality
I
sounds.
I so because of the music thing, I've been. So the first time I saw AI implemented in music, it was like a sound separation software, and it was featured at the BBC, and it was called Hit and Mix. And what they did was they took the intro theme from the BBC News, boop, boop, with the little bleep and everything, and they fed it there. And then in there, they just show you a spectrum of the sound waves, and then you're able to separate. Like, okay, well, here's the drums. I'm gonna mute the drums. I'm gonna mute this. I'm gonna mute that. And I was like, whoa! And this was like 12, 15 years ago. I just didn't have a computer to run it. Now it's awesome, and I see it as a tool. I can see it as a companion. It's like, hey, you're going to help me finish this chord progression, you know. And because the reality is, like, look, I have drum machines that have default patterns, right? People that make music, they use sample banks, right? The same way that we use patterns or swatches or whatever to design. Like, these are helpers. It's just that this is something you type in and you get it there instead of going through your catalog and it's like, okay, I need something that matches this. So I see AI being like kind of good. Like, it's I'm really excited to use it as a tool to assist. The other thing is that it's going to help me recover, let's say, old photos. You know, like, I've tried some AI cleaning photo tools out there, and not bad. I know Adobe has their own stuff, Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop, and they just dropped their new Sensei Power, blah blah blah. But there's a couple of companies that have like stuff they specialize in just that. And I shot an event the other day, and the party was kind of dark, and my ISO was cranked up, and the photos were not something I would use. So then I opened up my shutter, and then they started to be a little blurry. I ran it through the software, and it really surprised me what it was able to do. It gave me some sharpening, it gave me some cleaning, and it just made the photos like, here, this is presentable now. And I can see that being part of my workflow. Do you know what I mean? And it, like I said, it's part of the workflow. I'm not just going to feed it all my work because you have to babysit these things too. You have to give it like, I want this to look like this. So I'm down for the assistance. I'm I'm down for the
Do you
help.
ever fear do you fear the world where the assistance becomes a replacement? We talked about how, like, imagine a Boston Dynamics robot that can do all these things, also knows how to work a room now in a party, and it just is able to take all these photos and so on. The one argument is, of course, that okay, now this means that your time is freed up to do things that it cannot do. So you're moving up the creative value chain.
I mean, it is going to help with saving time, I think. Um, there will be a room where you don't need the same way that you give somebody a mix CD and they'll play it at the bar instead of booking you. They're just, I don't need to book this guy. I'm just gonna put it in there and just play it. It's the same thing. But when you have somebody in front of you, it's a person, it's a show, it's energy, it's an exchange, right? I could tell, like, it's like church, dude. I started to reconnect with nightlife after a long, long break, and like I was in it, and being back in with a different mind, completely fresh and a different approach. It's just like it's very rewarding, and it's like it's become like a spiritual thing. And I just go out and I get to meet people, and we get to talk. Sometimes we talk about music. Sometimes I go out. I don't want to talk about music because that's the other thing. Like, I don't do this when I'm at a place where people just want to do that. It's like, no, I want to know how the person that does the music is doing, how his life. You know what I mean? People forget that. So they just like, oh my god, I can't believe, and you, and here's my info, and I was like, they're humans, dude. Like, take it easy. It's. but it's so rewarding and it's so lifting that it's I don't see a robot doing that for me. I don't see an
No, I
automated
mean,
mix like creating that. I don't see, I mean, yeah, even in virtual reality, it's like it's fun. Like there's an app where you can DJ when you have gear and you bring your friends and you have a room with like 20 little avatars and it's cool, but it's not the same at all. So that's not going to go away. The art world, I mean, painting and stuff like that, and graphics for T-shirts. I mean, it's doing amazing web design, dude. Like amazing web design. I saw some layouts. I was like, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Like beautiful, beautiful ideas, you know, and still playing within the parameters of kind of like where we left off, which is fascinating because it didn't like blow my mind except for 3JS. That was the one I was like, yeah, this is good stuff. This is deep. This is like I need to geek out on this. So
no.
it's I don't think yeah it's gonna put a few people out of work. Definitely. Like if you have a team of people doing SEO, now you just need two people and chat GPT. He's like, hey, I need the top hits for this and that. And here it is, sir. And that's it. It's like, why am I paying this guy $5,000? I could pay chat GPT whatever their fee is, and I have that help. You know, so it's yeah, and it's part of times, dude. It's part of like the hell did people think was gonna happen? It's just fast.
No.
It's just really really fast. Like it is so fast trying to keep up with all these new clones of Midjourney and ChatGPT and all these places that are popping up on the internet. It's just like, oh my god, how do these people do it? Like I'm just gonna have to like grab onto something and stop and start trying to like function from there, but keep an eye out on like the growth because it's out there, and I think people should just start embracing it differently. Start thinking about it instead of like they're taking our jobs, like in South Park, you know. It's like, well, how can you make that work for you then? Because at the end of the day, there's the business, and then there's the being an artist or producing or professional, whatever it is. It's like when you're an artist, you're just an artist. You just do. I mean, I just do, dude. I don't really have an agenda. When I make music, it's not gonna be like charted on Beatport. It's like, no, I just felt weird that day and I made something that I connected with. You know, I paint. This time I was going through something, so I went in with those colors. And yeah, I don't think that's going to disappear. If anything, I think it's going to value more the artist and a lot of the people that are just doing it because it's cool, it's trending, and it's like, oh, well, somebody paid this and that for an NFT, or somebody bought a painting for $50,000 in Art Basel, and it's like, well, are you really into that? Because if you're not, like, you're gonna quit. I know a lot of people that quit, a lot of very talented people that just stopped, and I was like, how do you do that? How do you quit music? How do you quit being a 3D designer? Like the most talented people I've known, you just give up. Oh, I'm doing IT. I was like, okay, can't you do 3D on the side? Like what? So I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
built
I know we're
differently,
like coming up on.
huh?
Yeah, I know we're coming up on time here. So like one last, comment and get your take on it. This all goes back to again, like when you think about like intrinsic and extrinsic, like motivation and rewards. It's like, are you doing things for the external validation? Is it because you were doing things because you like the high you get from like seeing, all those likes and those retweets and
Oh
people watching
God,
your videos and so on? Or are you doing it because you just genuinely enjoy the process of just becoming a better artist, like you mentioned, being able to connect with other people more? Those are things that cannot really be taken away from you. You can't lose that because some new technology comes by or so on. And what I've historically found are the more successful people in the creative industry, because the creative industry can be a grind
it
sometimes.
is
But if your motivation for doing it is because you just genuinely enjoy it, it's because you want to become a better person, find yourself, and process information about how you do things in a more different way. I think those are the kinds of things where it doesn't matter what the world is like. It doesn't matter if you're not
right.
having, immediate success. You're still going to keep doing it because you just genuinely enjoy the art of doing that. I think that plays a huge role in between the ones who are doing this for like 20, 30 years versus ones who do it for a couple of years and then just quit. The things that keep that engine running are different.
I totally agree. I mean, for me, the idea of having a bunch of followers online kind of freaks me out. Like I see people that have 20,000 followers, and when you're a DJ, you're expected to kind of be goofy, and people say goofy stuff when you're being serious. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with, I don't want to babysit strangers. Like I'm an artist, I'm an individual, I'm very private. I like my privacy. I'm not interested in likes, like because I guess I saw the whole technology develop, right? And just from the beginning, it's like, well, why am I building these people? Why am I giving them content? Like I'm building their platform. They should be paying me. And then when I want to promote my art, I have to pay them $5 so people can see my post about my page. It's like, no, no. So and I just went down that route. It's like, if people want to follow, cool. But like, you see what I post on Twitter. I'm into the technology and cute stuff. I try to stay away from the politics because it's a heartbreak. And we can't really have deep conversations on, so many characters. Like some of these things are like deep and we have to go into history and we have to go like, hey, sorry about what your grandma told you, but this is what actually happened. And you know what I mean? So it's very emotional. So like, I just do. And I love the fact that I have the opportunity to like I can go to a party, a good party, and just bring my camera. Like this weekend, there was an opening for a new venue in Brooklyn, and I brought my camera, and I was able to climb on top by the guys doing the lasers and the projection, and just get this beautiful, amazing shot. And it's like stuff like that. I get a kick out of it. It's like I bring my camera to parties. Why not? And I share the photos, and people love it. And it's not because it's gonna like it does give me access. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like the camera has given me access to a lot of rooms, to a lot of people that I would never have, a lot of stages, a lot of VIP stuff. But it's also because it's a creative thing, and I'm passionate about it, and I like it. Like I see people that just work very, like if I work a party, I stay to the end. I want to see the guy closing the party and people being emotional. I was like, oh my God, and that song was so beautiful, and the lights come on, and there's this like churchy feeling to it. And it's like, I want to see that. I want to be part of that. Most people that work parties like, yo, it's 3:30. I'm out. I'm done. I don't want to see this. Like, I gotta go. So for me, it's just creativity. It just burns in there. And the more time I have, and like, as soon as I start understanding programming, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be amazing. I could start. But I don't kid myself. I don't have the mental space to throw in a whole another world of like, you know what I mean? Just like I can't program from scratch. That's not my world. But I can build and then like, okay, let's fix the program. Let's look at this and make it work. So that's why I also had to come to terms with that. It's like I can't chase the JavaScript rabbit hole. This is like deep. It's gonna take me some time. And this was years ago when I committed to that. I was like, you know what? I'll find somebody and they specialize in that and they'll take care of that business. So as a creative person, I had to also learn to just let go of certain things. Like this is out of my league. This goes to you. And I wanted to do this. But I also want to learn too, because I want to be able to understand like, how did you do that? Okay, so I could fix it. So, did that answer your question?
That answered that and so much more. I don't think we can end the show on a higher note than that one, Marvin. So
That's
that was a
awesome.
great response. And, thanks for taking the time to chat. And I think we should definitely do this a few more times, because there's a lot more things I want to go deeper into, especially electronic music, which is something I'm a big hobbyist of as well. So catch
Dude,
you
we
again
could
next time.
talk. It's been awesome. Thank you.
We could talk for hours. I know we could talk for hours here, and I also be respectful of that.